Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mount Vernon Hometown Heroes. We are interviewing Josh Daly today. And Josh, we're so glad to have you with us.
Thank you,
Just a word of introduction in case you don't know Josh. He has been with our law enforcement here in Franklin County for 10 years. And now Josh is the Emergency Management Coordinator. He has a very interesting job, and he's had to deal with some issues this year that he never dreamed probably that he would have to deal with. But in addition to crisis, he just does so much behind the scenes that works for good in Franklin County. On top of that, he's a kind man and a good man. I want to read you what my son said about him, who has worked with Josh in law enforcement. He said, Josh is a great example of good law enforcement. He can diffuse a situation. He's earnest and kind. That's what people need and what they want when they are in the midst of a difficult situation. And so, Josh, we are so glad that you could be with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it.
So Josh, what an introduction.
Yes, ma'am.
And we just thank you for being here. And you really are a hometown hero.
Well, thank you.
You really are. And you do so much behind the scenes, and especially now. You have come and you have responsibilities now that you never probably would have dreamed that would happen in this community and in our nation and our state, just all over. So what are your responsibilities as the Emergency Management Coordinator?
Yes, ma'am. So as the Emergency Management Coordinator in Franklin County, I work with law enforcement, fire, and EMS, and I report back to our Emergency Management Director, who is the county judge. And so my job is to kind of organize all these first responder agencies for a disaster response. So whether it be a pandemic like what we're going through now, or a tornado, or a major fire, or any type of disaster really that you can think of, my job is to get all the information together from all these agencies and make sure they respond as one. And then report back to the judge with that information, and so that we know if he needs to declare a disaster declaration, or contact the state for certain aid, or contact the federal government for certain aid. A lot of times, say a structure fire, I'll go out, no matter the time of night, I'll go out and I'll meet with those families, and then I'll reach out to the American Red Cross and see if there's some sort of aid that can be given to those families. If they just lost their home, it might be trying to get them put up in a hotel, or get them some money to provide for clothes that they might need at the time, or food, or anything along those lines. Anything the family can need, I try and coordinate that with the fire departments or with the Red Cross.
Josh, that's interesting. We're fortunate in this area that
Yes,
it sounds like most of our disasters are maybe just individual,
Yes, ma'am.
smaller ones at this point.
Yes, ma'am.
But does each county have a disaster manager or coordinator?
So each county has an emergency management director.
Okay.
Now, only some counties have emergency management coordinators, and so every county judge or mayor of a city is considered an emergency management director. And now, there are several counties that do have the coordinator position as well, that assist the judge, assist in grants, and so forth.
I'm glad you mentioned grants.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know from visiting with you
Yes, ma'am.
that you have written grants that have really been helpful in
Yes,
Franklin
ma'am.
County. Can you detail those?
Yes, ma'am. So I started writing grants whenever I was employed by the city, and that's kind of where I got my experience, where under the sheriff's direction, I would write grants for through the Criminal Justice Division or Homeland Security, and try and obtain equipment for the city. And that has carried over into my position with the Emergency Management Coordinator position, where I write those same grants, and I also handle PA funding, which is public assistance through FEMA, and work with the commissioners on different fundings for the roadways, or where the roads might have been damaged from flooding or major storms. and then I assist the sheriff's office in writing their CJD grants and their Homeland Security grants, and then we also applied recently through the USDA for vehicle funding. And so what the citizens don't see a lot of times is it's not just their tax dollars going to funding sheriff's offices or fire departments. A lot of times there are grant funds out there that they obtain to help cut down on the cost to providing that equipment.
That's great. Give us a dollar amount, say, for roads.
Last year, I think there was about $285,000 obtained, and the majority of that funding was obtained in Precinct 2 with Commissioner Jumper, and the majority of that funding was to repair a lot of the roads that were damaged from flooding then.
That's
Wow.
wonderful.
Wonderful.
So there's a lot of grant funds that are in the works.
Great.
So,
Great. We look forward to those.
Yes, ma'am.
We sure do. So what have your responsibilities been in regards to COVID and the challenges as well that you have seen?
Yes, ma'am. So COVID-19, the pandemic, has been new to everybody. Nobody's ever experienced it before, and so it's been a learning experience, not just for our jurisdictions, but all jurisdictions throughout the state, the country, the world. I mean, it's a learning experience. My experiences started watching it on the news, and I'm probably as guilty as anybody else, thinking, is it really gonna make it here to Texas? Is it really gonna affect us in Franklin County as bad as they say it is? And as it progressed further and further, I'm sitting there thinking, hey, here it comes, what can we do to get ready? And so the state reached out to us and started doing conference calls and stuff that we would be a part of and be able to listen in, and at that time we weren't experiencing it. You know, when they were experiencing the high case volumes in New York and the overwhelming people having to go into the hospitals and not having enough room, we weren't experiencing that yet. And as a local jurisdiction, we're thinking, hey, it's not going to hit us yet, but where are we going to be a month from now? Where are we going to be 2 months from now? One position or problem we ran into as a local jurisdiction is not having a hospital. So how are we going to transport people, or how are we going to get people the assistance they need without having a hospital they can respond to? And so we reached out to TDM, and at the time had the National Guard come out and look at our hospital to try and get it up to par, and they said that it would take too much funds and then also too much time to get it back up to where they would need it to be able to function. So throughout that time, we were also trying to obtain PPE supplies. And that we ran into another problem there where we were seeing, you know, a lot of it was going to the bigger jurisdictions, and so we were scrunging up what items we could to give out to our fire departments, our police officers, our deputies, our nursing homes, our funeral homes. We were trying to get all that equipment together and we were really limited on. I would drive out to a fire chief's house and hand him 20 masks and say, I'm sorry, but this is all I have right now. Right. And
but we wouldn't have had that probably without you, Josh.
Without us being able to reach out to people. And I want to give a big shout out to our citizens, because the equipment and the masks we handed out they were provided by the citizens.
Oh, that's
great. I had citizens call me and say, hey, we have a box of N95 masks here. Can you come by and pick them up, or can we drop them off to you and give them out to the officers or wherever they need to go to be able to provide to them? And so, without the support of our citizens, we can't properly do our job. And that's where it's a big deal to have y'all. I mean, what y'all do for us is a blessing.
Well, I'm impressed.
I am too.
Well, thank you.
I didn't even know, I wouldn't have known that you were the collection point
Yes.
until we talked
Yes,
to
ma'am.
you, Josh.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that is so good to know. Well, there is, can you give us some good news about COVID in this area, by the way?
Yes, ma'am. So, throughout the news now, we hear how bad it is, and you don't get to hear the good things. Right now, DSHS reports us at 22 cases. What they fail to tell you is the recovered amount.
Right.
22 cases is the total amount of cases in Franklin County that we've had since this has begun. Well, we've been dealing with this since the beginning of March. So if you think about March to now, and DSHS has a 10-day from the day somebody tests positive, 10 days later, their recovery team is supposed to contact that individual, and if they've been 72 hours fever-free, they're considered recovered. Nobody tells you that. You don't get that information. So
They
all
don't
you
drop
hear,
off the
Yes,
list.
yes,
They stay on the
yes.
list, and so it might make it look a little more
Yes,
bloated than it
ma'am.
is.
So do you have
Yeah.
those numbers of the recoveries?
Yes,
Can
so-
you share those
so-
with us?
So right now, 22 active cases. From my numbers, I figure we're actually around 5 or 6 currently active cases.
Oh, that's
And
great.
I'm going off of a 14-day period instead of 10 days for DSHSs. So I'm a little bit further behind just to make sure before I take those individuals off the list that they are recovered, that they are better. And then there's something else too, that as far as the notification time. So an individual might go get a test, and in some cases, it might take them 5 to 7 days before they ever find out whether they're positive or negative. Well, then a local jurisdiction don't find out for another 3 days. And in some cases, it's been longer. So you're already looking at 8 to 10 days there that you could have, that person is better now.
Right.
We would never want to minimize the virus,
Yes.
but at the same time, that's excellent news.
Yes, it's accurate information.
Yes.
There
Thank
you go.
you. We
There
just-
you go.
And I can tell you, the virus is not something to joke about. It's a serious matter. I mean, people are on ventilators and people have passed away. It's nothing to minimize whatsoever. I mean, it's a serious matter, but I feel like at the same time, we need to provide accurate information to our
Absolutely.
citizens.
And thank you for
Absolutely.
doing
Yes,
that
ma'am.
for us
Yes, ma'am.
today.
You're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome.
This is new on my horizon.
Yes, ma'am.
The Franklin County Health Building.
Yes, ma'am.
That you are also helping with that and helping to coordinate. That's really exciting. Can you explain what that is, Josh? And-
Yes, ma'am. So the idea was from the commissioners and the judge, and the way it came up is we received notification of the CARES Act funding, which there's $11 million in funding given to the state of Texas. That money was divvied up between each jurisdiction depending on their per capita at a $55 rate, I believe. And so it ended up with Franklin County, the county, receiving 400 and something thousand. The city of Mount Vernon will receive 150,000, and then with Winsboro being a portion of our county as well, I believe they receive around 3,000 or 4,000. So what we're doing with the public health building is the grant has to be used for COVID-19 mitigation purposes. Mitigation is to prevent the spread of COVID-19,
Right.
to stop something. And so with the public health building, our LHA, our local health official, is Dr. Gene Latortu, and he uses his private offices right now to be able to see the patients and take care of them. And so what we're hoping is that with this building, we can put extra exam rooms in it, meeting room, office space, and also include with our EMS building being out of date and not qualifying for, COVID-19 standards, we're hoping to improve, help mitigate the spread between those individuals that work there by providing them with this up-to-date building.
Because they don't have room for
Yes,
social distancing,
they
from
don't.
what I understand.
They don't. So
Right.
so this building, I grew up here in Franklin County, ever since I can remember the EMS building, I can remember going there with my dad to get clothes for the fire department whenever I was 5, 6, 7 years old. It's been the same building. So if you look at how standards have changed over the years, you know, they're not able to social distance properly and still be able to serve the citizens safely.
Josh, just before we leave this
Yes,
subject,
ma'am.
tell us where it will be located.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you think it will be built.
So it'll be located at the Franklin County Law Enforcement Center in the northeast portion of the parking lot, kind of if you pull around back to where the tax office is.
Okay.
And it has to be built or constructed, all checks written by December 31st of this year.
Oh,
That's
wow.
quick.
Yes, ma'am, it is. It is. So we're on a very tight schedule.
Yeah.
Very tight schedule.
Well, that's exciting. That
Yes,
will be
ma'am.
a really good asset for our community.
Yes, ma'am.
And a good thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Another positive
Yes,
thing.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, we started this Hometown Hero it's been about a month now.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
you are actually our 4th Hometown Hero.
Yes, ma'am.
And we always like to ask each individual, just how have you prayed more during this time, or how have you seen your faith play a part and grow?
Yes, ma'am.
And then how can we pray for you?
Yes, ma'am. So the time I pray is every night. Me and my family, my wife and my kids, we don't sit in front of the TV and watch TV. We sit at our kitchen table, which we got from my grandparents who passed away last year. And that's where we eat dinner every night. And before our meal, we'll say our prayer. And I pray at work whenever I go to eat with the sheriff and the judge and the justice of the peace. Before we eat our lunch, we'll pray. And it's the fellowship. It's the time being with each other and understanding that we're all in the same situation and we're all handling different things in life, but you can only conquer them together. And that's how COVID-19 and our position in any disaster needs to be responded to or taken care of. Is the only way we're going to do it is if we stand together. And you know, for me, from the way my parents raised me, and the Lord blessed all of us with something to make us special. Every one of us have something that we can do better than somebody else, and that's the way we were blessed. I was blessed with the ability to serve the public. And ever since I was a kid, that's all I wanted to do. I watched my dad get up at really late hours of the night to respond to, as a volunteer firefighter, to respond to fires, to help people, respond to accidents. I watched him go through EMT basic training while working his full-time job as the owner of an insurance agency. And then never ask for payment, always give. And that's what I grew up experiencing, and that's what I want to do for the citizens of Franklin County. I grew up in this county, I love this county, and I want to give back to it. I hope my children one day do the same thing. And so that's how I feel about our county, and that's how my faith has played a part in it and my raising.
I hope that everyone who is watching this, Josh, can feel what I know that Jill and I both feel in our hearts right now. And that is that there's just a warmth and a gratefulness that we have people like you who are servant leaders in this county and who bring what you bring to the job.
Appreciate it, Miss Reed.
And now, how can we and everyone else pray for you?
Keep asking for, before we started, we said a prayer. And we said a prayer for everybody here. We need to, it's not just one individual person can't change anything. We need to say a prayer for each other every day. Say a prayer for our first responders. Say a prayer for everybody on the front lines. Say a prayer for everybody that is experiencing the sickness. that's what we need to focus on is everybody.
We will do
That's-
that, Josh. Thank you.
You want-
And so we would like to present you with a key.
Yes, ma'am.
Just, this is a symbol of revival in our community
Yes, ma'am.
and unity. And you talked about it, praying
Yes.
for one another.
Thank you.
And being there for one another. And you are a true hometown hero.
Well, thank you.
And we
ma'am.
thank you for your service. We thank you for your honesty, your kindness, your humility. I mean, you are a true hometown hero.
Well, thank you. I
And you're from
appreciate it.
Mount Vernon.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you were born and raised here.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.